I'm Desiree. I'm a senior. It's important for youth to be educated because we're the future and we're all going out there and trying to make our place in the world. But the world is still a dangerous place and we have to know about what's happening out there. Anyone can be a victim, black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. I want my friends to know about human trafficking because I don't want them to disappear. I don't want anyone to get hurt, and the best way to avoid anyone being hurt is by spreading information.
My name is Skylar and I'm a senior. I think it is important for youth to be educated because it's for your own safety and it's good to help others around you be educated. I think it's important for youth to be educated so they can keep themselves safe and the people around them. I think trafficking could happen to anyone and very easily. It happens over time sometimes, but some people don't respect themselves enough or strong enough to do it on their own to keep themselves safe.
My name is Anna. I'm a junior. I think it's important for youth to be educated because we're exposed to so much through the internet and just as we're growing up. So if we're able to recognize different situations that might be dangerous to ourselves, whether it's a trafficking situation or just something that makes us uncomfortable, that'll be important in keeping us safe as youth. I would want my friends to know about human trafficking, obviously because I want them to be kept safe, but I also want them to spread awareness about the issue in their own personal circles. So if I'm able to connect with my friends about the issue, they're able to connect with people outside of my reach as well. I definitely think anyone can be a victim of human trafficking.
My name is Sarah Johnson, and I am the co-chair of the Lakeshore Human Trafficking Task Force and the executive director of the HOPE Project. When I first heard the terms human trafficking and that there are more slaves today than any other time in history, I thought, are you kidding? How is that even possible? Slavery ended years ago. How do we have more slaves today than any other time in history? And then someone gave a presentation and then they talked about human trafficking, and I began to learn more about this issue, and I knew I had to do something about it. At the HOPE Project, we have worked with over 100 survivors of sex trafficking, and that's just here in West Michigan. We want everyone to know what human trafficking is so we can prevent it, we can stop the demand, we can recognize the signs, and that something can be done about it, that there is hope for victims out there, that healing is possible for those who've experienced this. And it takes a community, it takes you to learn about this issue so that something can be done. And you're going to be equipped after today to do something about labor trafficking and sex trafficking. While you're watching this video and something comes up, maybe you get triggered because you've experienced trauma in your past, or maybe you're experiencing some of the things we're going to be talking about today, we strongly encourage you to get help, to talk to a school counselor, talk to an adult that you trust or a friend that you trust. And we want you to keep asking until you get that help, because help is available. We have a lot of resources available for you as well. The sooner you can talk to someone about this, the sooner you can get the help that you need so you can begin your healing journey. And it is possible to heal. When we talk about human trafficking, you're going to hear some different terms like force, fraud, and coercion. And I'm just going to explain what those are to you so you understand what those terms mean. Force usually includes violence. There's usually weapons involved when someone is forced to do something. The word fraud, you'll hear that term throughout this video, and fraud is more like a false advertisement for a job. So maybe it could be, you'll see an advertisement for a modeling job, but really what that ends up being is forced prostitution. Or it could be a site for a pornography gig, but you're thinking it's just you're modeling clothes. So that would be fraud. You're also going to hear the term coercion. And coercion is a word that says, well, if you don't do this, then something bad is going to happen to you. So if someone says, well, if you tell someone, then I'm going to tell your parents what you've done. Or if you tell someone, then I'm going to kill you. That's what coercion means. And so you'll hear that. Victims of trafficking have force, fraud, or coercion involved. Or if they're under the age of 18 years old and involved in commercial sex, that makes them a victim of trafficking. So commercial sex. What that is when someone has a sex act in exchange for something of value. So it could be money. It could be housing. It could be a place to sleep that night. It could be drugs. There has to be some type of commercial benefit in exchange for a sex act in order for it to be trafficking. So you hear that term commercial sex, and then another word that you'll hear is labor. Labor is anything that you do for a job. For example, someone who braids hair, someone who paints their nails, someone who's working in the field picking our blueberries or tomatoes, a farmer, someone who washes dishes as a house cleaner, any type of job, someone who could be a nurse or a teacher. That's what we're talking about when we say labor. Anything where you can exchange money for work would be labor. I encourage you to keep an open mind while you're watching this and to think about the people in your own life, because we all can do something about the issue of human trafficking. We can help prevent it and we can help respond to it. And you could be that one person to make a huge impact in someone else's life.
What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. It is the exploitation of a person through force, fraud, or coercion. Human smuggling and human trafficking are different crimes. Human smuggling is the illegal movement of someone across a border. Human trafficking is the illegal exploitation of a person. Human trafficking is about exploitation, not transportation. Human trafficking is a highly profitable crime and a violation of human rights. It occurs in every part of the world, including here in the United States. It happens in our big cities, our suburbs, and even in rural towns. It can happen to anyone. Human trafficking victims can be U.S. citizens or from other countries. Victims can be any age, race, or gender. But one thing they share is that they are vulnerable to being exploited. There are different types of human trafficking, including sex trafficking, forced labor, and domestic servitude. Sex trafficking victims are manipulated or forced against their will to engage in sex acts for money. Sex traffickers might use violence, threats, manipulation, or the promise of love and affection to lure victims. Truck stops, hotel rooms, rest areas, street corners, clubs, private residences. These are just some of the places where victims are forced to sell sex. Any person under the age of 18 involved in a commercial sex act is considered a victim of human trafficking. No exceptions. Forced labor takes on many forms, and it happens here in the US and overseas. Through force, fraud, or coercion, victims are made to work for little or no pay. Very often, these victims are forced to manufacture or grow the products that we use and consume every day. Victims of forced labor could be found in factories, on farms, doing construction work, and more. Victims of domestic servitude are hidden in plain sight, forced to work in homes across the United States. Their traffickers sometimes take their identification papers and travel documents in order to limit their freedom. They are prisoners, working as nannies, maids, or domestic help. Every year in the United States, thousands of human trafficking cases are reported, but many more go unnoticed. That's because human trafficking is a hidden crime. Victims might be afraid to come forward, or we may not recognize the signs, even if it's happening right in front of us. We need to bring this crime out of the shadows.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth McLean, and I'm an attorney with Farm Worker Legal Services, or FLS for short. FLS is a statewide program that offers free legal services to migrant farm workers and their families. So what does labor trafficking look like in Michigan? What have I seen? Well, in order to talk about labor trafficking, we first want to start with the definition of labor trafficking. The definition is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of subjugation to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. So those are a lot of words, and to break it down, I think it's easiest for me to talk about examples. In Michigan, some of the types of cases of labor trafficking that I've seen firsthand include the paying of what's called recruitment fees, or otherwise an employer paying costs upfront for a worker in order to get that worker to come to the job. What happens is a lot of the times workers will arrive thinking that all of those costs were paid for because the employer has stated as such, but in reality, when they receive their first paycheck, employers start taking out money from their pay stubs in order to recoup those costs in a way. Additionally, sometimes employers will have the employees do an illegal act as part of that employment and then hold it over the employee's head of, hey, you did this illegal act, you're going to keep doing it, or you're going to keep doing what I say, or I'm going to call the cops. And that in itself comes back to those fraud, force, and coercion as well. Another type of situation that we've seen a lot of is where an employer will take important documents from workers that can be important immigration documents, like visas, legal permanent resident cards or green cards. It can be general important documents like driver's license, passports, plane tickets, bus tickets. And often what you hear when you hear these stories are, well, the employer said that they were keeping it for safekeeping, to make sure that it didn't get lost. In reality, it's a form of control. They're keeping your documents hostage in order to keep you hostage to keep you working. Anybody can be a victim of labor trafficking. They can be male, female, children. It doesn't matter what your race or your nationality is. Anybody can be a victim. So what makes people vulnerable to labor trafficking? There's a bunch of factors. You can have one factor, you can have interlocking factors. It just depends. So a lot of the factors that can come into play are, as I mentioned before, immigration status. It can be your socioeconomic status. It can also be the transitory nature of being unfamiliar with the geographic location where workers find themselves, not knowing the resources to access or how to seek help necessarily. Those that are living at housing that is owned or operated by their employer, and also depending on their employer for transportation. So what can youth do in order to not become a victim of labor trafficking? Well, I'd say that the first thing is be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what is happening. Do not let an employer take your important documents. Do not pay an employer to receive a job. Just kind of pay attention to those examples that I laid out earlier. Don't let an employer take away or otherwise isolate you. So if you have a phone or a tablet, don't willingly hand that over to your employer in order to keep that job. So what should youth do if they suspect labor trafficking? Well, as I mentioned, being aware of your surroundings. But if you do think that you might be in a situation that could potentially be a form of labor trafficking, there is the National Human Trafficking Resource Hotline. Their number is 888-373-7888. You can call that number. They'll be able to give you some advice. They'll be able to connect you with the resources in your area, whether that be law enforcement, legal services, other support services that are needed. If you think that you might be in imminent danger or that someone might be in imminent danger, you can always call 911 in the meantime as well. Is there anything else that I would like you to know? Do not be afraid to seek help. If you, your family member, a friend, anybody, if you think that they might be a victim of labor trafficking, reach out for help. Call that national hotline number. Call a legal services agency. Call anyone. Just feel that you have those options available to you. Finally, I hope that none of you ever find yourselves in a labor trafficking situation. But should it occur, I hope that this video has been able to help you at least see some of the warning signs and be able to spot them should they occur.
Hello, my name is DJ Hilson. I'm the Muskegon County Prosecutor. A county prosecutor by statute, is designated as the chief law enforcement officer of the county. So when somebody does something wrong, our responsibility is to charge that case, representing the people of the state of Michigan in a criminal trial. Does human trafficking, does sex trafficking really exist? I'm telling you right now that human trafficking, sex trafficking exists. It's happening in your neighborhood. It's happening in your town. It's happening in your state. This is a real crime. So as we've experienced in the investigations that we've done here in Muskegon, and certainly based off of conversations that we've had with our peers across the state and even in the federal system, what we see is a common theme amongst predators who are looking to prey upon the vulnerable is that they find ways, usually through some type of social media outlet. That's where these predators lie in wait, because they're waiting to find those who are looking to connect. I think if we all look back in our own lives and life experiences, we can probably pinpoint a time when we felt vulnerable. Whether it was, having disagreements with our parents, or having issues and struggles at school, from bullying to not getting along with your peers, or just not understanding and respecting authority. Unfortunately, those that prey upon the vulnerable are surfing social media, surfing the web, looking for young people who are struggling to find somebody that they can actually connect with, someone that they can confide in. And it's easy to disguise themselves as a peer. I think one of the most important things that as a young person that you need to recognize and appreciate is that we all have private lives. The very nature of who we are as humans, and really who we are as United States citizens, is that ability to be private. And you need to cherish that like you would cherish anything else. And I think what we've seen in the past in investigations and certainly in prosecutions is that young people don't appreciate how important that privacy is. And they're willing to share that with whomever they feel that they can trust, even if they haven't seen that person face to face, even if they don't really know that person outside of some online communication. And what's really important is that once you provide that private information, and that could be anything, that could be, where you live, how many brothers and sisters you have, what your intimate, most private thoughts are. Once you share that information, that private information that is yours and yours to hold, you lose the ability to maintain that power in privacy. You have essentially given that right to, unfortunately, a predator who isn't going to cherish it like you cherish it. They're going to use it against you, and we've seen it. We've seen that information be used to place that particular victim in fear for their safety, fear for their family's safety. We've seen it being used to extort information, to get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do because you don't understand that they're using your power of privacy against you. And so unfortunately that leads to kids doing things like, taking their clothes off, doing things in front of a camera they wouldn't normally do, all because they fear that if they don't do those things, something bad's going to happen to them or something bad is going to happen to their family. And so it all goes back to the very beginning. Don't share your private life on social media. That's not the avenue. That's not where it belongs. You need to find a trusted person that you can trust if you want to confide into somebody about your private life, your private information. Please take the time. Make sure that the folks that you're communicating with online, via social media, are people that you already know, that you already have an established connection with. And be very wary about someone who all of a sudden seems to have the same likes that you have, seems to be going through the same struggles that you have, and it's somebody that you've never met before. That is a true telltale sign that is a predator waiting to pounce. Students at the age of middle school, as young as 12, are experimenting with all sorts of things, whether it be alcohol, whether it be marijuana, whether it be other drugs. Understand that the predators of human trafficking and sex trafficking use that mentality of, my friends are trying it, I might as well try it because all I'm doing is just trying it and nothing bad's going to happen. That's going to essentially do two things. One, you're going to find yourself in a state that you don't understand and may not even remember. Two, it also may put you in a state where you become addicted to those substances, and ultimately that addiction is going to drive that perpetrator to feed your addiction. In other words, you're not going to get that drug until you do this for me. You're not going to get that alcohol unless you do this for me. And your body won't understand that it's putting itself in a dangerous situation because it's going to crave that substance. And ultimately, the predators of sex trafficking, understanding exactly what those substances do to the body, you can get yourself in a whole lot of trouble really fast and not really appreciate and understand that it's happening. So what happens if you have shared too much? What happens if you find yourself, or more importantly, you are made aware of a friend that has put themselves in this position where they've shared too much information and now it's being used against them? What should you do? First and foremost, don't be embarrassed. Don't feel ashamed. Don't stand on the sidelines and let your friend feel embarrassed or ashamed. Understand that we in the law enforcement community are here to help you. In fact, we're going to be fighting hard to make sure that we protect you and that we put these folks who are using this information in the wrong way behind bars where they belong. If you have experienced that, or you know somebody who has, tell somebody. Tell somebody immediately. Call a police officer. Call 911. We are relying on you to help us out. So please, don't stand on the sidelines. Be a strong support for a peer, a friend, whatever it may be, because you can help stop this.
My name is Tyler Ingalls. I'm a professional basketball trainer and have been working with youth and teens all over Grand Rapids, West Michigan for about 12 years now. So my story with pornography started when I was young. I was introduced probably in 5th or 6th grade by some friends, and although it didn't really catch at that time, it began a path and a pattern for my life that steadily increased over the course of the next couple of years. By the time I was in middle school, it was something where I was addicted to this thing, and the worst part about it was, as I'm walking in this outside picture I was an athlete, I was a member of our community that was, and doing different things and volunteering. I was serving other people, but on the inside there was this shame and this brokenness and this fear of being found out. And so as I'm wrestling with all of these things, I don't know who to tell, I don't know who to talk to, and I don't know how to get free. And so this progressed on for a handful of years, and as you guys probably have found out, things escalate. And I would say that was really the heart of my experience with pornography, was that as I felt alone, I had to use other people And pornography taught me that you use people for your own gain, your own pleasure, your own value, and you find your value in the harming of other people. And so in that processing of really overcoming this, I knew I had to take some hard steps, and I knew that I had to do some challenging things because I was deep. And I decided that if I wanted to really be free, I needed some accountability that would hurt. What I did and what I chose to do was I put this accountability software on my laptop. So if I was to look at pornography, it was going to report back to someone. And I actually chose to report back to my grandparents, which was a little frightening, but also had that incentive of like, if I ever go back to one of these sites and back to one of these websites, it's going to go directly, that information's going to go to my grandparents. And I have family dinner every single Sunday with my grandparents. And I did not want to walk into church or walk into grandma's house that next Sunday and have her know what had been going on this past week. And so I really decided to take a hard stance on this, but to also put myself in a situation that I really don't want to mess up. And it was awesome. I ended up getting to eventually talk to my whole family about this, and there was just a lot of hope and support from my family as they got to walk alongside of me and help me make some decisions to do hard things. But yeah, that was one of those things that I had to do in life where I said to myself, like, do what's difficult. And I just encourage you, like, whatever it takes. If that means putting your grandma as your accountability partner, so be it. It's worth it. And then I was a freshman in college. Some things started to click together for me. And I was studying psychology and realized how broken this world is that we would use other people, okay, to make ourselves happy. And then what I really realized was that most of the people that I'd been seeing and for those years in pornography were actually not there by choice. And I realized that there's this whole dark world out there of abuse and of trafficking and all of these things, that the stuff that I was watching was not often people there by choice, but actually people there who are being taken from their homes, people who are being used and abused for my benefit. And so that's when I became more passionate about this subject and more of an activist in this area, when I realized that they were the people that I was seeing, the people that we were watching, the people that were on these channels and these websites were actually being abused and were actually being horrifically trafficked and drugged and all sorts of other things. If I could offer any advice to teens, a couple things I would talk about. One is there's some good news. Your brain is plastic, which means it's moldable and it can be changed. But the more we engage in those pathways and the longer we engage in those pathways, the harder it becomes to break those patterns and those pathways. The good news, though, is that it's always possible. And so I encourage you, it's not just pornography, but it's oftentimes other things in that realm that create these addictive cycles. Always ask for help from other people who are on the same team as you in the same mission.
I graduated from Mona Shores High School. The trafficking happened during the summer, and then I went back to school. And I think had any teacher or any of my friends maybe noticed a difference in my demeanor or my personality, that would have made a huge difference for me. If somebody would have just asked me what was wrong, I could have told somebody, but nobody asked, and so I just kept it inside. I was really depressed, and I used to be the class clown and really outgoing, and I just got really quiet, and I was suicidal, and I kept running away from home, and I just wanted somebody to ask me why, and nobody, the police, nobody asked me why. My dad and my stepmom, nobody ever asked me why I kept running away. They just assumed that I was being a rebellious kid. Nobody ever asked me, what was wrong and why I was running away. Don't wait for somebody to ask you what's wrong or what's going on. If something has happened to you, go get help. Ask for help. Seek help. There are so many organizations and safe places to go now. Don't wait 20 years to get the help or counseling or anything. Just don't wait. It's so important to get the help that you need and to be safe.
My name is Tom Gladney, and I'm a detective with the Michigan State Police's Computer Crimes Unit. We're also part of what's known as the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Our job is to work on anything that has a nexus to the internet or computers where a child could become at risk. This includes everything from chatting on gaming platforms to social media like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, things like that. There are a lot of different ways that children can become victims from those platforms, and it's our job to investigate the crimes relating to that. Everybody thinks about the term human trafficking as something that only occurs in the movies or in other countries or even in different neighborhoods, but it's something that is prevalent everywhere. Whether you go to the mall or are just at school, there are predators everywhere that are looking to contact you, and especially through these social media platforms, they can. They can know everything about you before they even reach out to talk to you the first time, and they can learn all that no matter who you are or where you live. The thing about the internet is that it can reach you no matter where you are. Whether you live in a 10-bedroom house or a 1-bedroom apartment, everybody has the internet nowadays, and it's usually on your phone, always in your hand, and so these people can reach out and talk to you no matter who you are, or who you live with, or where you are. So we see youths make themselves vulnerable on the internet in a lot of ways. Primarily, it's by oversharing on the internet, on their social media pages or whatever platform they decide to use, whether that's including every single update about every single day on their Facebook or Twitter account, to putting pictures of every meal they eat and every activity they do up on the internet. What this allows predators to do is to gain background information about their potential victim. They go through and read every single post that you ever made, every post that's public, to know more about you. In turn, they can use this information to befriend you and form an inappropriate relationship. There are a lot of different ways that predators will attempt to befriend their potential victims on the internet to gain their trust and eventually hope to contact that person. This can range from becoming your friend on a game like Fortnite or Call of Duty, whatever game you decide to play. They'll pose as someone who's around the same age as you. A lot of these games have voice chat platforms or texting platforms where they'll talk to you and they'll be interested in the same things you are. They'll talk about the game. They'll buy you things within the game, such as new skins or whatever kind of currencies in the game to earn your trust. And other ways they'll flatter you. On platforms like Instagram, they'll look at your pictures and make nice comments to, build you up, and in turn, that can let them gain your trust to change that relationship later on. So in a lot of cases, we see that these predators, once they get personal information about you, or once you've been talking for quite a while, maybe you've exchanged some pictures or talked about things that you may not want other people to know about, they will turn around and leverage this information against you to get you to do things that you may or may not want to do. For example, let's say you sent a nude picture to someone who you thought you knew who they were, you thought they were nice, but then they turn around and threaten to send this picture out to your parents, your entire school, your friends, if you don't send them more. And that's an example we see time and time again. Some examples of things that have actually happened in Michigan. One case that I worked, a victim was speaking to someone who she met through Snapchat, and just sharing pictures about herself and sending snaps back and forth. There were things in the background of the pictures that she never even realized were being noticed by the predator, and they were able to pick up on the fact that she had and cared about her pets. Well, what this person did is they turned around and then threatened to harm this girl's pets unless she did what they wanted. Situations like these aren't unique to young girls. Young boys are also potential victims when it comes to predators on the internet. For example, we've had cases in the past where a young boy has been speaking to someone who he believed was a girl, and had exchanged pictures and things like that he wouldn't want anybody else to see. And it turns out that the suspect on the other end was an older male. And by this time that the boy realized it, it was too late. He had already shared the pictures, and then they were used to basically pressure him into sharing more than he wanted to share. A lot of times in these situations, you may not realize that you've shared too much until it's too late, or that you've talked to somebody who you didn't really know who they were until it's too late. If you find yourself in this situation, it's never too late to come forward and tell somebody to start solving the problem. Either come to a trusted adult or to law enforcement, and we can begin to find out who this person is. And the sooner we find out, the more we can make sure that we can get back the images that you sent, or make sure that they're not forwarded on to anybody else. Staying safe online is a never-ending process. The number one thing you can do is to make sure that all of your social media outlets are set to private, so that way only your friends and people that you approve can see your content. Just things to keep in mind. Nobody will give you anything for free, and if something is too good to be true, it probably isn't. Just keep in mind that it is never too late to come to a trusted adult or come to law enforcement and tell us what's going on, and let us start helping you solve the problem.
You are valuable. Be aware about how you feel about yourself and others. In this day and age, we value ourselves by likes, but that's not going to protect yourself. Knowing your value is what gives you the tools to protect yourself.
There was a survivor who was trafficked at 4 years old. She was used for child pornography, but today she's come very far and she's a social worker. And she wanted to say, your everyday choices can fuel or prevent sex trafficking. The world you speak to each other, the way that you guys relate to and talk to about girls, the way girls speak of or choose to disrespect or honor one another.
All of the little day-to-day interactions can either be a pathway to exploitation or a barrier against it. Traffickers prey on the vulnerable, the weak, the broken, and hurting from all different social classes and communities.
Fight to give others value, and instead of pointing out the faulty things in them, point out the things that make them amazing individuals with endless possibility.
One thing we can all do to prevent human trafficking is to get mad. Mad, as in mentor, advocate, and donate. Be a mentor. Mentoring just means to help someone, whether they're younger than you or just someone who will listen to you. Spread positive information and help them in any way you can. Whether that's by tutoring them, talking to them about how to be safe online or where to get resources, it's always great to help. If you see someone struggling, reach out to them, be their positive person, and try to support them. Be an example. Live your life in a way that others can look up to you.
Advocate. Share awareness about human trafficking through social media platforms that you may have, whether that be through Instagram, TikTok, or Snapchat. Also, we all know someone who needs help. Use your social media to talk to people, text people, send pictures to other people, and just help people out by being a listener, even if it has nothing to do with human trafficking. But if you do suspect something, tell someone you trust or an authority figure who can help. We all know someone who needs help or just someone to listen to them. Even if you don't believe it has anything to do with human trafficking, listen to someone and advocate for others. Share this message with others by maybe posting 3 things that you learned, or even a video of yourself talking about what you learned. But when you do post about it, use the hashtag #DoSomething LHTTF so you can see what others are learning and people can communicate and raise more awareness about human trafficking.
Donate. You don't always have to donate money, but your time is very valuable, and a lot of these organizations need help fundraising and doing different things. I am on this task force, and there's also local churches and nonprofit organizations that need your help. Donating money always helps, and these organizations can't work without them.
If you want more resources, the Lakeshore Human Trafficking Task Force has a website, LHTTF.org, with tips for parents, tips for teens, and contact numbers if you suspect any sort of trafficking situation.
If you suspect that somebody is being trafficked, we encourage you to call the National Human Trafficking Hotline number, which is 888-3737-888. Put that in your phone. Make that be a homework assignment. Put it in your phone today, because you never know when you could save somebody's life. Someone was given this phone number who was a victim of sex trafficking. She called the hotline, and the hotline called the Hope Project. I received the phone call, and that day I literally was able to pick her up from a house where she was in hiding. This woman had been trafficked in Muskegon County. She had been trafficked in Flint. She had been trafficked in Benton Harbor, all across the state. She was part of a trafficking ring. She ended up in Muskegon, called the hotline. I picked her up and heard her story and was immediately able to act. We bought her a plane ticket and we sent her back home the very next day. That's how powerful this hotline is. It literally saved her life. She actually said, "Your donation saved my life," because someone gave money so we could buy her a plane ticket so she could go back home to her mom. The number works. I encourage you, put that number in your phone. On our website, we actually have posters that have that number on there. And so one thing that you could do, you could print a poster out and put it up at your school, because you never know when someone could be a victim of trafficking and needing that help. So it's an excellent number to call where someone can get the help that they need. Another thing that you can do is, if you feel like someone is in a trafficking situation and it's an emergency, call 911. They will be, the first responders. We encourage you, call that number if it is an emergency. Call 911. What will you do to prevent and respond to human trafficking?